The bullet was already loaded when Jake Morrison read the letter that would save his life. He'd planned it perfectly. Christmas morning, his Harley, the empty highway where they died. But then a 7-year-old boy he'd never met wrote 7 words that made him lower the gun. "I want a dad who stays." 3 months later, that same boy's biological father would show up with Russian mobsters on his tail, and Jake would have to decide if he was really the kind of man who kept promises to children. 6 months earlier, Jake Morrison wasn't the kind of man who showed up. He was barely the kind of man who woke up with a reason to keep breathing. The Iron Wolves clubhouse sat on the outskirts of Riverside, a squat brick building that had once been a mechanic's shop. Inside, the air smelled like motor oil, cigarettes, and the particular brand of brotherhood that only forms between men who've seen the worst of each other and stuck around anyway. Jake sat at the bar, his 3rd whiskey of the afternoon sweating a ring onto the scarred wood. It was 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. He'd taken the day off from his job at the construction site. He'd taken a lot of days off lately. His foreman had stopped asking why. "You're gonna drink yourself to death, Hawk." Reaper slid onto the stool beside him. Marcus Reaper Stone had been president of the Iron Wolves for 12 years. He was built like a freight train, with a gray beard that reached mid-chest and eyes that missed nothing. "And before you say that's the point, I'm gonna remind you that's a coward's way out." Jake didn't look up from his glass. "Didn't realize you were keeping count of my drinks, old man. I'm keeping count of your pulse, brother, which seems to have stopped about 2 years ago." The words hung in the air between them. 2 years, 3 months, and 16 days, if anyone was counting. Which Jake was, always counting. "Sarah and Emma wouldn't want this," Reaper said quietly. Jake's hand tightened around his glass. "Don't. Someone's gotta say it. You're not honoring their memory by slowly killing yourself. You're just making their deaths count for nothing." Jake stood abruptly, the stool scraping against concrete. "You don't know what the hell you're talking about. I know what I'm seeing. I'm seeing my brother take the most dangerous runs. I'm seeing him volunteer for the jobs that might not have a return trip. I'm seeing him stop caring if he makes it home." Reaper stood too, not backing down. "The drunk driver who killed them got 5 years. You planning to give him the satisfaction of taking 3 lives that day?" The rage that flashed through Jake was white-hot and immediate. His fist clenched, and for a moment, the only thing he wanted was to make someone hurt as much as he did. But Reaper just stood there, steady as a mountain, waiting. The rage collapsed into something else, something that felt like drowning. "I don't know how to do this," Jake said, and his voice cracked. "I don't know how to be here without them." "I know, brother, but you're not gonna figure it out at the bottom of a bottle." Reaper gripped his shoulder. "The club's doing the annual toy run next month. I'm assigning you to logistics. Sorting letters, picking toys, organizing deliveries. Safe duty. I don't need a babysitter." "Yeah, you do. And maybe some kid out there needs you to have a reason to stay sober for a few weeks. Consider it an order." Jake wanted to argue, but the truth was he was tired. Tired of fighting, tired of pretending, tired of the empty house that still smelled like his daughter's strawberry shampoo. "Fine," he said, "but I'm not dressing up like Santa." "Wouldn't dream of it, brother." 3 weeks later, Jake found himself in the community center's basement, surrounded by cardboard boxes overflowing with letters. The toy run was an Iron Wolves tradition going back 20 years. Local kids from low-income families wrote letters to Santa, and the club made sure every child got at least one gift. It was good PR for a motorcycle club that still made some people nervous, but more than that, it mattered. Even to Jake, who wasn't sure anything mattered anymore. He worked mechanically, sorting letters by age group, marking down gift requests. A baseball glove here, a doll there, a video game system that the club would try to source used. Most of the letters were standard kid wishes. Most of them made him feel nothing. Then he opened the letter written on construction paper. The handwriting was shakier than the others, the letters carefully formed like the writer was concentrating hard on each one. In the corner was a crayon drawing of a motorcycle. surprisingly detailed for a child's hand, blue and silver with careful attention to the spokes of the wheels. "Dear Santa," it read, "my name is Eli. I am 7. My dad left when I was 4. My mom works 2 jobs and cries at night when she thinks I'm asleep. I don't want toys. I want a dad who stays, a dad who teaches me things and doesn't leave when things get hard. Can you send me that? If not, a bike is okay too. Love, Eli." Jake read it once, then twice, then a third time, his hands starting to shake. A dad who stays. The words blurred as his eyes filled. He'd been a dad who stayed. He'd coached Emma's soccer team. He'd done the voice for every character when he read her bedtime stories. He'd braided her hair every morning, watching YouTube tutorials until he got it right. He'd stayed right up until the moment a drunk driver ran a red light and took away his chance to stay anymore. Jake folded the letter carefully and stood up, walking past the other volunteers, past Mrs. Chen who ran the program, out into the parking lot where his Harley waited. He sat on the bike without starting it, staring at nothing. This was the first time he'd cried since the funeral. The first time he'd let himself feel anything other than the dull ache of absence. He cried for Emma, who'd never grow up. For Sarah, who'd never see their daughter's first date or graduation. For this kid Eli, who was asking Santa for something no toy could replace. And maybe, in some small way, he cried for himself. For the dad he'd been and would never get to be again. "Jake? Hawk?" Mrs. Chen's voice was gentle. She was a grandmother of 5, a tiny Chinese woman with steel in her spine and kindness in her eyes. "Are you all right?" He wiped his face roughly with his palm. "Yeah, fine." She didn't believe him, he could tell, but she just stood there, waiting. "This letter," he said, pulling it from his pocket. "The kid who wrote this, Eli, do you know him?" Mrs. Chen's expression softened. "Eli Torres. Yes, I know the family. His mother, Rachel, brings him to our after-school program when she can. She works 2 jobs, sometimes 3. The father left years ago." "Where do they live?" "Jake, we don't give out addresses." "I want to help. Just this one family. Let me deliver his gift personally. Please." Mrs. Chen studied him for a long moment. "Helping can mean a lot of things. What kind of helping are we talking about?" "The kind where a kid gets a bike for Christmas. That's all." But they both knew it wasn't all. Something in that letter had reached through Jake's grief and grabbed hold. Something had made him feel for the first time in 2 years. Mrs. Chen sighed. "I'll give you the address, but Rachel Torres is proud, Jake. She doesn't accept charity easily, and she's protective of her son. Don't push too hard." "I won't," Jake promised. He didn't plan to push at all. He'd buy the bike, drop it off, and be done. Clean conscience, good deed, move on. That was the plan. The universe, Jake would learn, didn't care much about his plans. The Torres house was in a neighborhood that had seen better days. Small post-war homes with peeling paint and chain-link fences. Cars on blocks in driveways. Burglar bars on windows. Not dangerous exactly, but tired. Worn down by decades of people working hard and still falling behind. Jake sat on his bike 3 houses down, watching. Not stalking, he told himself. Reconnaissance, old Marine habits. It was 4:30 in the afternoon when a school bus stopped at the corner. Eli Torres got off alone, a backpack nearly as big as he was pulling at his small shoulders. He was skinny in the way of kids who grow too fast, all elbows and knees in jeans that were slightly too short. He walked with his head down, hands shoved in his pockets. 3 older boys got off at the next stop. Jake watched them follow Eli, saying something Jake couldn't hear. Eli's shoulders hunched further. One of the boys shoved him, not hard, just enough to make him stumble. Jake's hand went to his ignition. Every instinct screamed at him to intervene, but something held him back. This wasn't his fight. Not yet. Eli pulled a key from under a rock by the front door, a hiding spot so obvious it made Jake wince. The boy let himself into the empty house, and Jake watched the lights click on room by room. Eli was 7 years old, coming home to an empty house, letting himself in, probably starting his homework alone at the kitchen table. Jake had never let Emma come home to an empty house. Sarah's nursing shifts had been carefully arranged. When they couldn't make it work, Grandma had been there. Always someone. Always family. He watched for another hour. At 5:30, a beat-up Honda Civic pulled into the driveway. Rachel Torres got out, still in her nurse's aide scrubs, looking like exhaustion had taken human form. She was pretty in a worn-down way. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, shoulders carrying weight that had nothing to do with the grocery bag she lifted from the back seat. Jake started his bike and rode away. He had what he needed. He knew their schedule now. He could plan his approach. What he didn't plan for was running into Rachel Torres at the grocery store 2 days later. Jake was grabbing bread and eggs, the basics that kept him functional. He turned down the cereal aisle and nearly collided with a cart. Rachel Torres stood there, comparing prices on 2 boxes of off-brand cereal, her lips moving as she calculated. She put the slightly cheaper one in her cart and kept moving. Jake followed at a distance, watching her shop the way someone shops when every dollar is counted twice. Store-brand everything. The smallest package sizes. Checking her list, checking her calculator app, putting items back when the total climbed too high. At the register, she loaded her items onto the belt with the careful precision of someone who'd done this calculation 100 times. The cashier rang her up. Rachel swiped her card. Declined. She tried again, her face flushing. Declined. "I'm sorry, can you take off the juice boxes?" Rachel's voice was barely audible. The cashier removed them. Rachel tried again. Still declined. "The chicken breast too, please." Jake was moving before he made a conscious decision. He stepped up to the register, pulled out his wallet. "Put it on mine." Rachel's head snapped up. "No, thank you, but no." "It's already done," Jake said to the cashier, handing over his card. "Ring it all up." "I said no." Rachel's voice was sharp now, embarrassment turning to anger. "I don't need charity." "It's not charity. Call it paying it forward. Someone did it for me once when I needed it." That was a lie. No one had ever paid for Jake's groceries. But it was the right lie. The one that let her accept without losing face. Rachel studied him, taking in the leather vest, the iron wolves patch, the road-worn face of a man who'd seen things. Her jaw was tight, pride and necessity warring behind her eyes. "Fine," she said finally, "but I'm paying you back." "No need." "Yes, there is." She pulled out a pen and a receipt. "Give me your number. I'll Venmo you when my check clears Friday." Jake rattled off his number, knowing she wouldn't call, but giving her a way to hold on to her dignity seemed important. Outside, as she loaded her car, he tried for casual. "I volunteer with the Iron Wolves Toy Run, community outreach stuff. Your son wrote a letter through the program, Eli, right?" Rachel's body language shifted immediately, protective. "How do you know my son's name?" "It was on his letter to Santa. The club delivers to all the kids in the program. I was just confirming I had the right family." "Eli wrote a letter?" "He didn't tell me. Kids keep secrets sometimes." Jake kept his voice neutral. "Good ones and bad ones. This one seemed good. He asked for a bike." A complicated expression crossed Rachel's face. "I can't afford a bike right now." "That's what the program is for, making sure every kid gets something. We don't need handouts." "Lady, I'm not trying to insult you. It's a program for the whole community. Your property taxes help fund the community center that helps fund this. You've already paid into it. Let your kid get something back." Rachel considered this. "What's your name?" "Jake. Jake Morrison. Most people call me Hawk." "Why Hawk?" "Marine Corps nickname. I had good eyes on recon missions." He shrugged. "It stuck." "You're a veteran?" 10 years Marines, 2 tours Iraq, 1 Afghanistan. Something shifted in Rachel's expression. Not trust, exactly, but a crack in the wall. "My father was Army. Vietnam." "Then he understands why we do the toy run, taking care of the community. It's what we do." Rachel nodded slowly. Okay, thank you. For the groceries and for whatever you're doing for Eli. No problem. Jake handed her his card, a simple thing with his name and number and the Iron Wolves logo. If you ever need anything else, the club does community stuff. We're not what people think. Rachel took the card, and Jake saw her fingers were shaking slightly. From stress or exhaustion or just the weight of everything, he couldn't tell. People think you're criminals, she said bluntly. Some clubs are. We're not. We ride, we raise money for local causes, we look out for our neighborhood. That's it. Why? Why what? Why do you do it? The toy drive, the community stuff. What's in it for you? Jake thought about Emma, about the last Christmas they'd had together when she'd been so excited about Santa that she'd woken him up at 4 a.m., about how none of that mattered now. Maybe I need to remember that good things still happen, he said quietly, even when it feels like they don't. Rachel held his gaze for a moment, and Jake had the uncomfortable sensation of being seen, really seen, past the leather and the beard and the walls. Friday, she said. I'll Venmo you Friday. She didn't, but 3 days later, Jake was in the park across from his apartment building, working on his bike, when a football rolled up to his boots. He looked up to see Eli Torres standing there, skinny and uncertain. Sorry, Eli said. I kicked it too hard. Jake picked up the ball, turned it in his hands. A cheap one, the kind you buy at a dollar store, already starting to deflate. You here alone? Mom's at work. Mrs. Patterson from next door watches me sometimes, but she fell asleep. I'm not supposed to leave the yard, but I wanted to practice. Everything in Jake screamed that this was wrong. A 7-year-old wandering alone, slipping away from an elderly neighbor who couldn't keep up. Wrong and dangerous and none of his damn business. You know how to throw? Jake asked. Eli shrugged. Sort of. Nobody really showed me. Jake should have given the ball back and sent the kid home. Should have called Rachel. Should have done anything other than what he did next. Come here, I'll show you the right grip. For the next 40 minutes, Jake taught Eli Torres how to throw a spiral, how to step into it, how to follow through, how to read a defense even though Eli didn't know what a defense was yet. The kid was uncoordinated but eager, soaking up attention like a plant that had been dying of thirst. You're really good at this, Eli said, panting after chasing a long throw. Did you play football? High school and college, linebacker. But that was a long time ago. Could you teach me more stuff? Mom tries, but she works a lot and she doesn't really know about sports. Jake's chest tightened. Your mom know you're here. Eli's face fell. Don't tell her, please. Mrs. Patterson will get in trouble. I'm not gonna tell, but you need to get back before she wakes up, okay? Okay. Eli clutched the football. Will you be here tomorrow? Maybe, Jake said, knowing it was a mistake. If I am, bring that ball. Eli's face lit up like Christmas morning, and Jake felt that crack in his chest widen a little more. The next day, Eli was there. And the day after that. Always checking first that Mrs. Patterson was asleep. Always careful. Always hungry for the attention that Jake gave without thinking. They threw the football. They talked. Eli asked questions about everything. The Marines, motorcycles, the scars on Jake's hands, why the sky was blue, whether Jake thought dinosaurs could beat sharks in a fight. Jake answered them all, and somewhere in those afternoons, he stopped feeling like he was just going through the motions. Somewhere in those afternoons, he remembered what it felt like to matter to someone. On the 4th day, the 3 boys from the bus stop showed up. They were 12, maybe 13, that age where boys test boundaries and look for weakness. They saw Eli with Jake and hesitated, but teenage bravado won out. Hey, Eli the alien, the biggest one called. Who's your friend? Your fake dad? Eli's face went red. Jake stood slowly, all 6 feet and 200 pounds of him unfolding like a threat. You boys got something to say? The leader tried to hold his ground. Just talking to our friend Eli. Didn't sound friendly. Jake walked toward them, not fast, not aggressive, just inevitable. Sounded like bullying, and I really don't like bullies. We weren't. Here's what's gonna happen, Jake said, pulling 3 challenge coins from his pocket. They were Iron Wolves coins, given out to people who'd earned the club's respect. You 3 are gonna take these, and you're gonna remember that Eli here is under the protection of the Iron Wolves MC, which means if something happens to him, if he gets pushed around, if his lunch gets stolen, if someone even looks at him wrong, the club is gonna want to have a conversation with whoever's responsible. You understand? The boys stared at the coins like they were grenades. But, Jake continued, his voice softening slightly, I'm betting you 3 aren't actually bad kids. I'm betting you've got your own problems, your own stuff going on. So here's the deal. You leave Eli alone, you look out for him even, and these coins mean you've got friends too. Someone gives you trouble, you show them this, you tell them to call the number on the back. We take care of our own, and our own includes anyone who treats people right. The leader took his coin slowly. You serious? Dead serious. I believe you're better than you've been acting. Prove me right. The boys left, turning the coins over in their hands, and Jake knew the bullying would stop, because that's how it worked in this neighborhood. The Iron Wolves had a reputation, and that reputation meant something. That was awesome, Eli breathed. You're like a superhero. I'm not a hero, kid. I'm just a guy who doesn't like seeing people get picked on. My dad used to let people pick on me. He said I needed to toughen up. The casual way Eli said it made Jake's stomach turn. Your dad was wrong. There's nothing tough about letting someone hurt you. Real strength is protecting people who can't protect themselves. Is that why you're a Marine? Part of it, Jake said. Come on, we should get you back before Mrs. Patterson has a heart attack. That evening, Rachel called him. Eli told me about the boys, about what you did. Jake braced for anger. I didn't mean to overstep. Thank you. Her voice was thick with emotion. Those boys have been making his life hell for months. The school says they'll handle it, but they never do. And I can't afford to move, and I work too much to homeschool, and I just... Thank you. It's nothing. It's not nothing. It's everything. Eli won't stop talking about you, about football and Marines and motorcycles. He's happier than I've seen him in years. Jake didn't know what to say to that. The silence stretched between them. Would you like to come to dinner? Rachel asked. This Friday. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and garlic bread, but Eli would love it, and I'd like to thank you properly. Jake should have said no, should have kept the distance, should have remembered that getting close to people meant eventually losing them. Yeah, he heard himself say, I'd like that. Friday dinner became a regular thing. Then Saturday afternoons at the park. Then helping Eli with homework while Rachel worked her evening shift. Jake fixed their porch light that had been broken for 8 months. He changed the oil in Rachel's car. He showed up with groceries, claiming the club had surplus from a donation drive. He was lying. There was no surplus. He was just buying groceries and pretending it was charity so Rachel's pride would let her accept them. The Iron Wolves noticed. Reaper pulled him aside at the clubhouse one night in late November. You're different lately, Reaper observed. Getting attached to that family? I'm helping out, like you told me to. The toy run, remember? The toy run is a one-time delivery, brother. You're building something here. Something that looks a lot like caring. So, that a problem? Only if you're not ready for it. That kid is going to get attached. The mom already is, whether she admits it or not. You planning to stick around? Jake thought about Emma. About the empty house he still couldn't sell. About the bottle of whiskey in his freezer that he hadn't touched in 6 weeks. I don't know, he admitted. Figure it out, Reaper said. Because if you're gonna bail, better to do it now, before the kid starts calling you dad in his head. But it was already too late for that. Jake knew it. He saw it in the way Eli's face lit up when he arrived. In the way the boy had started unconsciously mimicking Jake's gestures, his way of standing. In the questions Eli asked about the club, about bikes, about what it meant to be a man. And maybe it was too late for Jake too, because when he was with them, teaching Eli to ride a bike, laughing at Rachel's terrible cooking jokes, watching a kid's movie on their worn couch, He felt something he hadn't felt in 2 years. He felt alive. Thanksgiving was the breaking point. Rachel worked a double shift at the hospital, and Mrs. Patterson's family had taken her out of town. Eli was going to spend the day alone, watching TV and eating a frozen dinner. "Come to my place," Jake said. "I'll cook." "You cook?" Rachel sounded skeptical. "Lady, I was a Marine for 10 years. I can make a turkey with my eyes closed." So they came. Eli arrived with a carefully drawn turkey made of traced handprints, and Rachel brought a pie she'd somehow found time to bake. Jake's house, which had been nothing but a place to sleep and avoid memories for 2 years, suddenly felt like a home again. Over dinner, Eli asked the question Jake had been dreading. "Hawk, how come you don't have any kids?" The silence was immediate and total. Rachel's face went pale. She'd done her research, Jake realized. She knew about the accident. "I did have a kid," Jake said quietly. "A daughter named Emma. She was 6. Was? She died 2 years ago. Her and my wife Sarah. A drunk driver hit their car." Eli processed this with the strange wisdom children sometimes have. "Is that why you're sad sometimes? Even when you're smiling?" "Yeah, buddy, that's why. I'm sorry Emma died. I think she was probably really cool if she was your daughter." Something broke in Jake's chest, just shattered completely. "She was the coolest kid I ever met. Until I met you." "Really? Really? She would have liked you a lot. You would have been good friends." Eli climbed down from his chair and hugged Jake. Not asking permission, just deciding it was needed and doing it. And Jake hugged him back, this skinny kid who smelled like grape juice and soap, and let himself feel it. The loss and the connection all tangled up together. Over Eli's head, he met Rachel's eyes. She was crying silently, and Jake realized he was too. That night, after they'd left, Jake stood in Emma's room for the first time since the funeral. The room was exactly as she'd left it. Her stuffed animals arranged just so on her bed. Her bookshelf organized by color because she said it looked like a rainbow. Her Princess Elsa nightlight still plugged in by the door. He pulled out his phone and called his sponsor from the grief counseling group he'd attended twice, and then quit. "Tom? It's Jake Morrison. I know it's been a year, but I think I'm ready to come back." December arrived with early snow. The toy run was scheduled for the 23rd, and Jake had Eli's bike stored in his garage, wrapped and ready. He'd gotten exactly what the kid asked for. A blue mountain bike with training wheels that could be removed later, a bell, and a basket. It was too much, probably, but Jake didn't care. The club was doing the final preparations when Rachel called. Her voice was shaking. "Jake, Eli's father is back." The world tilted. "What?" "Marcus, he just showed up at the house. He says he's changed. He wants to be part of Eli's life again." "Where are you?" "At home. He's with Eli right now, talking to him. Jake, I don't know what to do. I'm coming." "No, you don't need to." "Rachel, I'm coming." Jake made the drive in 15 minutes, probably breaking every speed limit. He pulled up to find an unfamiliar car in the driveway, a newer model sedan that screamed rental. Through the window he could see them. A man in a business suit, hair perfectly styled, white teeth flashing as he smiled at Eli. Marcus Torres looked like a stock photo of success. Jake sat on his bike, paralyzed. What was he doing here? He wasn't Eli's father. He had no right, no claim. Marcus was the biological parent. Maybe he had changed. Maybe he deserved a second chance. But then he saw Eli's body, language. The boy was sitting stiff on the couch, not relaxed. Not like he was with Jake. And when Marcus reached out to ruffle his hair, Eli flinched. Jake was inside before he made a conscious decision. Rachel answered the door, relief flooding her face. "Jake, thought I'd stop by," he said casually. "See if Eli wanted to throw the football." Marcus stood from the couch and Jake immediately read him. The too perfect smile, the calculating eyes, the body language of a salesman, not a father. This was a man who wanted something. You must be the boyfriend, Marcus said smoothly, extending a hand. Marcus Torres, Eli's father. Jake didn't take the hand. Jake Morrison, friend of the family. Right. Rachel mentioned someone had been helping out. That's real neighborly of you. But now that I'm back, you probably don't need to trouble yourself anymore. It's no trouble. Still, I'm sure you've got your own life, your own family to worry about. The words were pointed, deliberate, a reminder that Jake was an outsider. Actually, I don't, Jake said evenly. My family died 2 years ago, so I've got plenty of time. Marcus's smile flickered. I'm sorry for your loss, but Eli has a father now. He doesn't need a substitute. Maybe you should ask Eli what he needs. Everyone turned to look at Eli. The boy was pressed into the corner of the couch, his eyes moving between the adults like he was watching a tennis match. Eli, buddy, Marcus said, his voice dripping with false warmth. Tell this man that you're happy your dad is back. Eli looked at Jake, then at his mother, then down at his hands. I don't know you, Eli said quietly. Marcus's face tightened. Don't be silly. I'm your father. I was there when you were born. I taught you to walk. You left when I was 4. I barely remember you. Well, I'm here now, and I want to make up for lost time. Why? The question came from Rachel, her voice hard. Why now, Marcus? What happened to your new life in California? Your new girlfriend? The fresh start you said you needed? Marcus's mask slipped for just a moment. Things didn't work out, but that's not important. What's important is I'm here, I'm stable, and I want to be part of my son's life. Where are you staying? Jake asked. I'm at the extended stay on Route 9, just until I find an apartment. And work? I'm between opportunities at the moment, but I've got some leads. Tech sales, it's what I know. Everything about this felt wrong. The timing, the vague answers, the way Marcus kept glancing at his phone. Jake had dealt with enough con artists in his Marine days to recognize one. Hawk, Rachel said carefully. Could you take Eli outside? Let us adults talk. Jake nodded. Come on, kid. Let's go check out my bike. Outside, Eli immediately grabbed Jake's hand. I don't want him here. I know, buddy. Is he gonna stay? I don't know. That's up to your mom. But you'll stay, right? Even if he stays? Jake knelt down so they were eye level. Eli, he's your father. Your real father. Maybe he really has changed. Maybe he wants to be the dad you asked Santa for. I didn't ask Santa for him. I asked for you. The words hit Jake like a physical blow. Eli, you're the one who comes to my games. You're the one who helps with homework. You're the one who makes Mom smile. He's just a stranger who happens to be related to me. Blood matters, kid. You told me family isn't always blood. You told me family is the people who show up. Jake had said that, about the Iron Wolves, about chosen family. And now those words were being thrown back at him. He's here now, Jake said quietly. He's showing up. For how long? Mom says he always leaves. She says people don't change that much. Through the window, Jake could see Rachel and Marcus arguing. Body language aggressive, voices raised. This wasn't a happy reunion. The door opened. Rachel came out, her face flushed. Marcus is staying for dinner. He wants to spend time with Eli. She looked at Jake. You should go. It felt like dismissal, like being fired from a job he didn't even know he had. Yeah, okay. Jake stood. Call me if you need anything. He rode home and sat in his garage, staring at Eli's wrapped bike. He'd been stupid. Reaper was right. He'd gotten attached, built something in his head that wasn't real. Eli had a father. Rachel had to prioritize Marcus, to give him a chance for Eli's sake. Jake was just the friendly neighbor, the interim solution, the substitute dad. His phone rang at midnight. Rachel. He's gone, she said. Marcus left. What happened? He wanted money. That's why he came back. He owes people, Jake. Bad people. He thought he could crash here, use us as a shield. When I said no, when I told him to leave, he tried to take my laptop. Said I owed him for the years he was gone. Did he hurt you? No, but he scared Eli. He said things, threatened to take Eli away in a custody battle if I didn't help him. Then he just left, peeled out of the driveway and disappeared. You call the police? And say what? My deadbeat ex asked for money and left. They won't do anything unless he comes back. I'm coming over. Jake, it's midnight. I'm coming over. Pack a bag for you and Eli. You're staying at my place until we figure this out. We can't impose. Rachel, this isn't a negotiation. Pack a bag. She did. And when Jake arrived, she fell into his arms in the driveway and cried. Eli stood behind her, clutching his backpack, looking smaller than his 7 years. Jake took them home. He set Rachel up in his room and took the couch. Eli refused to sleep in Emma's room, said it felt wrong, so Jake made him a nest of blankets on the floor beside the couch. At 3 a.m., Eli whispered, "Hawk, you awake?" "Yeah, kid. Thank you for coming." "Always, buddy, always. Even though my real dad came back, especially then." In the darkness, Eli's hand found Jake's, and they fell asleep like that. A broken man and a scared child, holding on to each other. If you're still watching, drop a comment and tell me what you think Rachel should do. Should she give Marcus another chance? Should she let Jake closer? Should she run? Because this story is about to get more complicated. The next morning, the Iron Wolves went into protection mode. Reaper called church, club meeting, and the verdict was unanimous. Rachel and Eli were under club protection until Marcus was no longer a threat. "But we need to find him," Reaper said. "Can't protect against what we can't see coming." It took the club 3 days. The Iron Wolves had connections in places civilians didn't think about. Bail bondsmen, private investigators, bartenders, motel clerks. The network came through. Marcus Torres was at a roadside motel 30 miles away. He owed $15,000 to a loan shark named Dmitry Volkov, a Ukrainian immigrant who ran his operation like a business. Reasonable rates, clear terms, but absolute enforcement. Marcus had borrowed to fund a startup that failed, then borrowed more to pay back the first loan. The classic debt spiral. He's using Rachel as a hiding spot. Snake, the club's treasurer, reported. Thinks if he's around his kid, Volkov won't collect, using the boy as a human shield. Jake's hands clenched into fists. "Where's Volkov?" "Don't even think about it," Reaper warned. "We're not starting a war with the Russians. We handle this clean." "How?" "We bring Marcus in. We negotiate. We make sure he understands that Rachel and Eli are off limits." They found Marcus at a bar, drowning his problems in bottom-shelf vodka. 2 of the club's largest members, Bear and Tiny, walked him out without incident. Nobody wanted trouble with the Iron Wolves. At the clubhouse, Marcus sat in a folding chair in the center of the room, surrounded by 20 bikers. It was intimidation through presence, and it worked. Marcus couldn't stop shaking. Jake stood directly in front of him. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell us everything about this debt. Then you're going to sign away your parental rights. Then you're going to disappear from Rachel and Eli's life forever." "You can't make me." "We're not making you do anything," Reaper interrupted calmly. "We're explaining your options. Option 1, you cooperate. We help you negotiate with Volkov. We get you set up with a payment plan, maybe even help you with the first installment. But you leave Rachel alone. You sign the papers and you don't come back. Option 2, you don't cooperate. We tell Volkov exactly where to find you, and we step back. Then you've got no protection and a very angry Ukrainian looking for his money." Marcus's face went white. "That's not fair." "Fair." Jake stepped closer. "Fair is showing up for your kid every day. Fair is not using a 7-year-old as a shield. Fair is not threatening the woman who raised your son alone while you were living it up in California. You don't get to talk to us about fair." "He's my son." "No," Jake said quietly. "He was your son. You gave that up when you walked away. I've known Eli for 2 months, and I've been more of a father to him than you've been in 7 years. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to take the help we're offering. You're going to sign whatever paperwork Rachel's lawyer draws up. And you're going to thank whatever God you believe in that I'm a better man now than I was in Afghanistan, because the Jake Morrison from 10 years ago would have handled this very differently. The threat hung in the air. Marcus looked around the room, seeing no sympathy anywhere. What about my rights? You forfeited those, Reaper said. But if you want to fight this in court, go ahead. We've got lawyers too. And Rachel's got documentation of every missed child support payment, every failed promise, every time you chose yourself over your kid. You really want that becoming public record? Marcus slumped in his chair. Fine, I'll sign. Good choice, Reaper said. Snake will drive you to meet with Volkov tomorrow. We've already reached out. He's willing to talk payment plans if you show up and act reasonable. After that, you leave town. If you come back, if you contact Rachel or Eli, if you even think about them, we'll know. And we won't be this nice the second time. They let Marcus go. Jake watched him leave, feeling empty. This should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt sad. A father who couldn't be what his son needed. A man so broken by his own failures that he'd use his child as a shield. You okay? Reaper asked. I don't know. I keep thinking, what if Emma had lived and I'd become that guy? What if I'd let grief turn me into something that would hurt her? But you didn't. You almost did. But you pulled back. That's the difference. Is it? I'm getting attached to another man's kid. I'm inserting myself into a family that isn't mine. Maybe I'm just being selfish. Maybe, Reaper agreed. Or maybe you're being what that kid needs. Sometimes selfish and selfless look the same from the outside. The question is, what are you going to do now? Marcus is out of the picture. The threat is gone. You could walk away clean. Could I? No, Reaper said. I don't think you could. I think you're already in too deep. I think that kid already calls you dad in his head. I think Rachel already sees you as more than a friend. And I think you're terrified because the last time you loved someone this much, you lost them. So what do? You decide if love is worth the risk. Because it always ends, brother. Always. Either someone leaves or someone dies. The question is whether the time you get together is worth the pain of eventually losing it. Jake thought about Emma. Every soccer game, every bedtime story, every terrible dad joke that made her groan. If he'd known she'd only live 6 years, would he have chosen not to be her father? Would he have walked away to avoid the pain? Never. Not in a million years. I'm in, Jake said. I'm all in. Then you better make sure Rachel is too, because this isn't just about you and Eli anymore. That conversation happened at Rachel's kitchen table, after Eli was asleep. Jake had spent the day helping them move back into their house, changing the locks, installing a security system the club had donated. Marcus signed the papers, Jake said. He's gone. Volkov is handling his debt, and as long as Marcus makes payments, there won't be problems. You're safe. Thanks to you. Rachel's hands wrapped around her coffee mug. Thanks to the club. I don't know how to repay this. You don't need to repay anything. We take care of our own. Is that what I am? One of yours? The question was loaded with meaning. Jake met her eyes. I want you to be, he said carefully. But I need to be honest with you about something. About why I've been helping. Eli's letter, Rachel said. I know. Mrs. Chen told me. About how you reacted when you read it. Did she tell you about Emma? Yes. Jake, I'm so sorry. Don't. I don't need sorry. I just need you to understand that when I started this, I was doing it for me. Trying to fill a hole that can't be filled. Using your son to feel like a father again. That was selfish and wrong, and I apologize. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being about me. Eli isn't a replacement for Emma. He's just Eli, this amazing kid who deserves a father who shows up. And you're not a substitute for Sarah. You're just you, this incredible woman who's doing impossible things on no sleep and even less support. Jake took a breath. I'm in love with you, both of you, as a family. And I know that's fast and maybe crazy, but I'm too old to play games. I want to be what Eli asked Santa for. I want to be a dad who stays. but only if that's what you want too. Rachel was crying. I'm terrified. Of what? Of letting Eli get attached and then you leaving. Of letting myself feel this and then losing it. Marcus destroyed me when he left. I can't go through that again. I can't promise I won't die, Jake said. I can't promise nothing bad will happen, but I can promise I won't leave. I can promise I'll show up every day. I can promise that if you let me, I'll love that boy like he's my own, and love you like you're my whole world, because that's what you are. You brought me back to life. Jake, you don't have to answer now. Think about it. Talk to Eli. Make sure it's what you both want. But Rachel, I'm asking to be part of this family. Permanently. Rachel stood up, walked around the table, and kissed him. It was soft and desperate and full of hope and fear, all tangled together. Yes, she whispered against his lips. Yes, you can stay. Please stay. They spent the next 3 weeks in a cautious kind of happiness. Jake was there for dinner most nights. He helped Eli with homework. He and Rachel went on actual dates, awkward and sweet like teenagers. The club embraced them. Rachel and Eli came to a club barbecue, and Eli was in heaven, surrounded by motorcycles and tough men who let him sit on their bikes. Everything was falling into place. Everything was perfect, which should have been Jake's first warning that the universe wasn't done testing them. It was December 21st when Jake got the call from his doctor, the follow-up from his annual physical routine blood work that had shown something concerning. They wanted him to come in, do more tests, see a specialist. It's probably nothing, the doctor said, but we need to rule some things out. Jake didn't tell Rachel, didn't want to worry her over probably nothing. He went to the specialist, did the tests, waited for results. The results came back 2 days before Christmas. Not cancer, thank God, but a heart condition, genetic, exacerbated by years of stress and drinking, treatable with medication and lifestyle changes, but serious. The kind of thing that would require monitoring, doctor visits, a complete overhaul of how he lived. The kind of thing that reminded him he was mortal. That promises of forever were just pretty words against the reality of human fragility. Jake sat in his truck in the hospital parking lot and called Reaper. I'm broken, he said. My heart is literally broken, and I just promised Rachel forever, and I don't know if I can deliver that. Did the doctor say you were dying? No. He said with treatment, I could live to 90. Then stop catastrophizing. Tell Rachel. Let her in. That's what people who love each other do. What if she decides it's too much? What if she doesn't want to sign up for this? Then she's not who you think she is. But I don't think that's going to happen. That woman looks at you like you hung the moon, brother. Give her some credit. Jake told her that night. Laid out everything. The diagnosis, the prognosis, the medications, the lifestyle changes. Rachel listened without interrupting. When he finished, she took his hand. Okay. Jake, my father had a heart attack at 55. He lived to 78. My mother has diabetes. My brother has high blood pressure. Everyone has something. If you think a manageable heart condition is going to scare me off after everything we've been through, you don't know me very well. It's going to mean doctor appointments, medications. I might not be able to ride as much. Then we'll adjust. That's what people do. Jake, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for someone who shows up, who tries, who loves us even when it's hard. You're that person. A heart condition doesn't change that. You're sure? I'm sure. Now stop trying to find reasons to push me away and help me figure out how we're going to tell Eli that Santa came early this year. Christmas morning arrived with fresh snow and clear skies. Jake pulled up to Rachel's house at 6 a.m., the red bike strapped to his motorcycle, a key to his house in his pocket. He'd spent the previous evening moving Emma's things into storage, not erasing her but making room for new memories. The room was ready for Eli, painted blue like the kid wanted, with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Eli was at the window before Jake cut the engine. The boy's face pressed against the glass, eyes wide. Then he disappeared, and seconds later the front door flew open. "You came back," Eli said, standing in the doorway in Superman pajamas, barefoot in the snow. Jake swung off the bike, his heart full and terrified and hopeful all at once. "Yeah, kid, I came back." Eli ran to him and Jake caught him, lifting him up like he weighed nothing. "I got you something." "The bike?" Eli saw it and gasped. "It's perfect. It's exactly what I wanted." "I know. I read your letter to Santa. But Eli, there's something else." Jake set him down, pulled out the small box with the house key. "Your mom and I have been talking, and if it's okay with you, I'd like to be around more. A lot more, like every day more." "Like living together?" "Eventually, yeah, if that's what you want." Eli looked at the key, then at Jake, then back at the key. "Would you be my dad? Like, officially?" "I'd like to be, if you'll have me." "Yes." Eli threw his arms around Jake's waist. "Yes, yes, yes. I asked Santa for a dad who stays, and he sent you. You're exactly what I wanted." Rachel appeared in the doorway, wrapped in Jake's old marine sweatshirt, her eyes red from happy crying. Jake held out his hand to her, and she took it, and they stood there in the snow, a biker, a nurse's aide, and a 7-year-old boy, becoming a family. The Iron Wolves pulled up then, 20 bikes deep, their engines roaring like thunder. They'd brought presents for Eli, food for the neighborhood, and brotherhood for Jake. Reaper climbed off his bike and clasped Jake's shoulder. "Told you love was worth the risk," Reaper said. Jake looked at Eli trying to climb on his new bike, at Rachel laughing as she tried to stop him from riding in his pajamas, at the family he'd found when he'd stopped looking for one. "Yeah," Jake said. "You were right." They spent Christmas Day together, just the three of them. Jake taught Eli to ride the bike properly, training wheels and all. Rachel made hot chocolate that was too sweet, and cookies that were slightly burned. And they were perfect. They watched Christmas movies and built a snowman and fell asleep on the couch in a pile, Eli wedged between them. Jake pulled out his phone and took a picture. This was the moment. This was what Eli had asked for. Not toys or bikes or material things, but presents. Someone who showed up. Someone who stayed. Jake Morrison had been a dad who stayed once before, and he'd thought that chapter of his life was over. But sitting there with Rachel's head on his shoulder and Eli's small hand in his, he understood. Love didn't replace loss. It didn't erase grief. It just gave you a reason to keep going, to show up, to stay. 2 months later, Jake and Rachel stood in front of a judge, Eli between them, and made it official. Rachel kept her last name, but Eli became Eli Morrison Torres, a hyphenation that honored where he came from and where he was going. The Iron Wolves filled the courthouse, leather and chrome and brotherhood. Mrs. Chen was there, the neighbors were there. Even the 3 boys who'd bullied Eli showed up, now his fierce protectors and unexpected friends. As they left the courthouse, Eli looked up at Jake. "Does this mean I can call you Dad now?" "You can call me whatever feels right, buddy." "Okay, Dad." The word hit Jake like a lightning bolt. He'd heard Emma say it 1,000 times. He'd thought he'd never hear it again. But here it was, in a different voice, from a different child, and somehow that made it okay. He wasn't replacing Emma. He was honoring her by being the father she'd taught him to be. That night, in his house that was now their house, Jake sat in what used to be Emma's room and was now Eli's room. He pulled out the letter, the one written in crayon on construction paper, and read it one more time. "Dear Santa, my name is Eli. I am 7. My dad left when I was 4. My mom works 2 jobs and cries at night. I don't want toys. I want a dad who stays." Jake folded it carefully and put it in a frame. He hung it next to a picture of Emma, 2 children connected by the man who loved them both. "I'm staying," he whispered to both of them. "I promise, I'm staying." And he did. Before you go, hit that like button if this story touched you. Subscribe if you want more stories about redemption, second chances, and families built on choice rather than blood. And comment below, Tell me about a time someone showed up for you when they didn't have to. Share your stories of dads who stayed, whether they were biological or chosen. Because those stories matter. Those stories change the world. Jake Morrison had asked himself if love was worth the risk. If opening himself up to loss again was worth the time he'd get in between. And every day, watching Eli grow, loving Rachel, riding with his brothers, he found the answer. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Because love isn't about avoiding pain. It's about deciding that the joy is worth it, that the connection matters more than the inevitable goodbye, that showing up every single day is what makes us human. Eli had asked Santa for a dad who stays. What he gave Jake was a reason to keep living. And in the end, maybe that's what family is. Not the people who are stuck with you, but the people who choose you. Every day, over and over, in the hard times and the easy ones, the people who stay.